so. Out here, we spotted something that they disrupted in the 30s, but they saw it, and so have we. It appears to be a cellar, maybe, or a well. It's full of late 17th century artifacts, but the fun thing about these deep features is that they fill with successive layers, and what's on the bottom is older than what's on top. So we may be looking at an earlier 17th century structure with a cellar that gets used and reused over time. Around here, we found early 17th century artifacts. We found Native American artifacts. We know that Captain Pierce is out here. He is trading with England. He is trading with the Virginia Indians. He is trading with the colonists. There's commercial activity going on here. We may be looking at remains potentially of a storehouse or a warehouse. What's fun is these places of work, they often end up also being places where people live, especially enslaved people, especially indentured people. They end up living where they work. So this is something I'd love to see more research done on. The second thing that's important here is these long linear features. One cut in half, one intact with a post at its head. These are burial shafts. They're graves. Now, there are remains probably in these shafts below. We aren't going to open them. That's not something we intend to do. That's something we would do. Maybe in the future someone will. There is something interesting about these 3 burials. There are 2 more below the ground there that the Civilian Conservation Corps saw in the 30s. These 5 burials are east to west in a Christian fashion. They are close enough to the consecrated ground around the church to be buried in consecrated ground, but they were not. They were not taken to the church and buried there. And that raises questions. There are a few things that could be happening here. We could be looking at really highly frowned upon sinners, perhaps. We know those people are not buried in consecrated ground sometimes. We could be looking at Virginia Indians, potentially, although that would be rather odd. Other possibilities, we could be looking at indentured people or enslaved people. People who would not have been buried in consecrated ground because they were considered different. I don't know the answer to that. We probably won't during this project, but in the future someone will come back and investigate and answer these questions, and I think they're well worth answering, because these burials raise lots of questions, at least for me. The last place we dug, back on the other side of the hillside, we're actually spending time getting those areas open right now. We encountered a bunch of really early features, but nothing that led us to one specific location, because this area has been built upon and destroyed and moved for centuries since the 16 teens. People have been living here and working here continuously since the 16 teens, unlike the fort, which kind of became a park-like atmosphere later in its life. We found a brick kiln, probably used to build the bricks for the Ambler Mansion, but underneath it or beside it, we found a trash midden from the early 17th.